The Idea Factory, Deconstructing the Bell Labs Phenomenon and the Nature of Exponential Innovation. Introduction, The Anomaly of Murray Hill. In the annals of technological history, few institutions command the reverence and mystique of Bell Telephone Laboratories. For much of the 20th century, this sprawling research and development organization, nestled in the suburbs of New Jersey, functioned as the world's preeminent idea factory. It was an institution that operated on a scale and with a level of creative freedom that seems almost mythical in the context of modern corporate R&D. Bell Labs was not merely an incubator of innovation. It was the wellspring of the foundational technologies that would define the digital age and reshape the fabric of modern life. Its output was staggering in both its breadth and depth, ranging from the fundamental physical component of the digital world, the transistor, to its fundamental mathematical language, information theory. The list of its achievements reads like a catalog of the 20th century's most transformative inventions: the laser, the solar cell, the charge-coupled device, CCD, that underpins all digital imaging, the first communications satellite, the Unix operating system, and the C programming language. Beyond these tangible technologies, its researchers made discoveries so profound they altered humanity's understanding of the cosmos, such as the accidental detection of the cosmic microwave background radiation, the echo of the Big Bang itself. This relentless torrent of discovery, recognized by 10 Nobel Prizes and 5 Turing Awards, was not the product of sporadic flashes of genius but of a sustained, almost industrial-scale process of invention. This report seeks to deconstruct the Bell Labs phenomenon. It posits that the laboratory's unparalleled success was the product of a unique, and likely unrepeatable, confluence of economic structure, national ambition, scientific freedom, and visionary leadership. It was a perfect storm, born from a government-sanctioned monopoly that provided near-limitless resources and long-term stability, yet yoked to a clear and demanding mission: the creation of a global telecommunications network. To understand Bell Labs is to explore a series of critical questions that remain profoundly relevant today. What were the essential ingredients of this idea factory? How was its unique culture of engineered serendipity architected and maintained? What was the true nature of the exponential advances it unleashed? And what were the statistical probabilities and theoretical underpinnings of its success? Furthermore, what were the hidden costs, the suppressed innovations, and the complex political and military entanglements that cast a shadow over its golden age? Finally, how does this legendary institution compare to other great innovation engines, from Xerox PARC to DARPA, and what can its rise and eventual fall teach the innovators, policy makers, and strategists of the 21st century? This analysis will demonstrate that while the specific conditions that created Bell Labs may be gone forever, the principles it embodied offer enduring lessons on the nature of breakthrough innovation itself. Part 1. The Architecture of Genius, Forging the Bell System's Crown Jewel. The extraordinary productivity of Bell Labs was not an accident of history but the result of a meticulously constructed system. Its foundation was as innovative as any of its technological outputs, representing a deliberate effort to institutionalize discovery. The organization's architecture, its historical roots, its unique economic engine, and its guiding philosophy, was designed to attract a critical mass of talent and channel it towards solving problems of unprecedented scale and complexity. This section deconstructs these foundational elements, arguing that Bell Labs was the culmination of a strategic, decades-long effort to build a machine for invention. From telephone to telephony, a legacy of research. Bell Telephone Laboratories, formally incorporated on January 1, 1925, was not a sudden creation, but the logical and deliberate culmination of a half-century of evolving R&D strategy within the Bell system. Its institutional DNA can be traced directly back to Alexander Graham Bell himself. In 1880, Bell used the 50,000 franc Volta Prize, awarded for his invention of the telephone, to establish the Volta Laboratory. This act signaled an early and foundational commitment to reinvesting the proceeds of invention into further research. The Bell Telephone Company, formed in 1877, institutionalized this ethos from its very beginning, recognizing that its commercial viability depended on continuous technological improvement. As the telephone network grew, so did the complexity of its technical challenges. The company's structure evolved to meet these needs, creating a manufacturing arm, Western Electric, and a series of engineering departments tasked with improving equipment and transmission quality. By 1884, the American Bell Telephone Company had created a mechanical department, which grew out of an earlier electrical and patent department, formalizing the R&D function. The turn of the 20th century marked a critical inflection point. As Bell's foundational patents began to expire, the Bell system faced a surge of competition. Its strategic response, championed by visionary President Theodore Newton Vail, was not to compete on price or through litigation alone, but to establish dominance through technological superiority, particularly in the lucrative and technically demanding long-distance market. This strategy required a massive escalation in research investment. Vail consolidated the engineering functions of AT&T, which had become the parent company, and Western Electric into a large, centralized laboratory in New York City, placing it under the command of Chief Engineer John J. Carty. Carty was given a clear and monumental task: solve the problem of transcontinental telephone communication. The primary obstacle was signal attenuation over vast distances. The solution came from a team led by physicist Harold D. Arnold, which took Leedy four-sodium vacuum tube and perfected it into a reliable electronic amplifier. The success of the first transcontinental call in 1915 was a resounding validation of Vail's strategy. It proved that investing in fundamental scientific research could solve the company's most pressing business problems and create an insurmountable technological advantage. By the early 1920s, the research organization had swelled to over 3,600 employees. This growth prompted the final step in its evolution. In 1925, the engineering departments of AT&T and Western Electric were formally merged and incorporated as a separate, jointly owned subsidiary, Bell Telephone Laboratories, Incorporated. Frank B. Jouett, an engineer who had been instrumental in the Transcontinental Project, was appointed its first president. The creation of Bell Labs did not immediately change the work being done, but it consolidated R&D under a single, powerful entity, making it more responsive to corporate control and giving it a formidable public profile as the world's premier industrial laboratory. This history demonstrates that Bell Labs was forged not in a moment of inspiration, but through a long, strategic process driven by the commercial and competitive necessities of building and defending a national communications network. The monopoly's mandate, a private tax for public innovation. The engine that powered Bell Labs was utterly unique in the history of corporate America and essential to understanding its phenomenal output. The laboratory operated within the protective cocoon of a government-sanctioned monopoly. As the research arm of AT&T, Bell Labs was funded by what was effectively a private tax on every telephone call made in the United States. A small fraction of every dollar from a toll call, physicist Michael Reardon estimates 3 cents, was funneled directly into research and development, providing a stable, predictable, and immense stream of funding that was insulated from the quarterly pressures of a competitive market. This enviable financial position, akin to a publicly funded national laboratory like CERN, gave Bell Labs the freedom to pursue long-term, high-risk projects with timelines stretching 10 to 15 years into the future, an almost unimaginable luxury for modern corporations. This unique funding model was inextricably linked to AT&T's overarching corporate mission, the achievement of universal service. This was not merely a marketing slogan but a grand, nation-building ambition. The goal, as articulated by an early vice president, was to enable any two people in the world to be able to talk to each other as if they were face to face. This mission provided more than just a sense of purpose for the scientists and engineers. It created what author John Gertner calls a problem-rich environment. Building what Claude Shannon would later describe as the most complex machine that man has ever attempted, presented a continuous stream of formidable technical challenges that demanded fundamental scientific breakthroughs. The relationship between the monopoly's funding and the mission's demands created a powerful, self-reinforcing cycle that was the true secret to the lab's success. The mission to build a global network provided the justification for the massive R&D budget. It would have been impossible for AT&T to rationalize such an expense to shareholders and regulators without a clear, ambitious, and technically demanding goal that served a perceived public good. In turn, the monopoly provided the means to pursue this goal without compromise. This symbiosis allowed basic research to flourish. For instance, the quest for better amplifiers for transoceanic cables led to deep investigations into solid-state physics, which ultimately produced the transistor. The need to maximize the capacity of existing copper wires led to Shannon's formulation of information theory. The breakthroughs that emerged from this process not only improved the telephone network, but also created entirely new technological paradigms, which further solidified AT&T's dominance and reinforced its public image as a benevolent, innovative force. This model stands in stark contrast to modern corporate R&D, which is typically tethered to specific product roadmaps and near-term profitability. The history of Bell Labs suggests that truly foundational, platform-level innovation may require a rare combination of immense, stable resources and a grand, long-term challenge that transcends immediate commercial imperatives. The monopoly provided the patient capital, and the mission provided the ambitious problems. Together, they created the conditions for a golden age of discovery. The Kelly Doctrine, engineering serendipity. If the monopoly provided the fuel for Bell Labs' engine, its president from 1951 to 1959, Mervyn Kelly, was the chief architect of the engine itself. Kelly's genius lay in his understanding that sustained innovation was not a matter of luck or simply hiring brilliant people. It was a process that could be structured, managed, and physically engineered. He transformed Bell Labs from a collection of departments into a cohesive institute of creative technology, a system designed to maximize the probability of unplanned, interdisciplinary discovery. At the heart of the Kelly Doctrine was the principle of critical mass and forced interaction. He was deeply involved in the architectural design of the iconic Murray Hill facility, which opened in 1941. The building's design was a physical manifestation of his philosophy. It featured exceedingly long corridors, some the length of 2 football fields, which were intended to compel encounters between people from different disciplines. A physicist walking to the cafeteria might bump into a metallurgist, a chemist might encounter a mathematician, and a theorist could serendipitously meet an experimentalist. This was engineered serendipity, a belief that intellectual ferment happens when you force smart people to collaborate in person. The policy of keeping office doors open further encouraged the free exchange of ideas. Kelly deliberately structured the organization to break down silos. He brought together theorists and experimentalists, chemists and physicists, engineers and metallurgists, believing that the most effective research groups combined these diverse skill sets. The lab was broadly organized into 3 functional areas. Research, an unscheduled area of work where scientists created a reservoir of new knowledge, principles, and materials with no immediate deadlines or commercial objectives. Systems engineering, teams that drew from this reservoir of knowledge to integrate ideas into plausible, necessary, and economical systems for the Bell network. Development or manufacture, engineers who designed and developed new products like switches and transmission systems based on the work of the first 2 groups. This structure ensured a continuous flow of ideas from fundamental discovery to practical application. Leadership within this structure was also unconventional. Managers were typically chosen for their strong technical track records, not just their seniority, ensuring they understood and appreciated the scientific work they were overseeing. This organizational philosophy fundamentally challenged the romanticized lone genius myth of invention. While Bell Labs was home to brilliant individuals like Claude Shannon, who famously unicycled through the halls while juggling, the institution's success was not predicated on them. Personal accounts and analyses of the lab's culture reveal that progress was overwhelmingly seen as the product of groups, not individuals. The system itself was the star. The institution, with its emphasis on collaboration, its world-class support staff and machine shops, and its problem-rich environment, received as much credit for the discoveries as the scientists themselves. Bell Labs demonstrated that the key to high-volume, sustained innovation lies less in the quest for singular, transcendent geniuses and more in the meticulous construction of an organizational and physical architecture that fosters constant, high-quality collaboration among a critical mass of diverse and talented experts. The genius of Bell Labs was the genius of its system. Part 2. The foundational pillars of the modern world. The innovations that emerged from Bell Labs were not merely incremental improvements or clever gadgets. They were foundational pillars upon which the entire edifice of modern technology was built. These were platform innovations, discoveries so fundamental that they created new scientific fields and enabled decades of subsequent technological development by others. From the atomic unit of computation to the mathematical laws of communication, Bell Labs invented the very grammar of the digital age. This section examines the lab's most significant contributions, demonstrating how they formed an interconnected web of discovery that transformed our world. The Big Bang of the solid state, the transistor. Arguably the single most important invention of the 20th century, the transistor was the direct result of a focused effort at Bell Labs to solve a critical engineering problem for the Bell system. The telephone network relied on vacuum tubes to amplify signals, but these devices were bulky, fragile, unreliable, and consumed enormous amounts of power. In 1945, a team was assembled under William Shockley to find a solid-state replacement. The breakthrough came during the Miracle Month, spanning from November 17 to December 23, 1947. Physicists John Bardeen and Walter H. Brattain, while experimenting with gold contacts pressed onto a germanium crystal, created the first successful point contact transistor. On December 23, they demonstrated their small device to Bell Labs executives, showing it could amplify an electrical signal. Shockley, recognizing the potential but also the limitations of the point contact design, secretly conceived of and later developed the more robust and manufacturable bipolar junction transistor in 1948. For their monumental achievement, Bardeen, Brattain, and Shockley were awarded the 1956 Nobel Prize in Physics. The invention of the transistor was the Big Bang of modern electronics. It was the first device that could perform the two essential functions of digital technology, amplifying an electrical signal and switching it on and off. Its key advantages over the vacuum tube, small size, low power consumption, low heat generation, and high reliability, unleashed a revolution in miniaturization. Transistors led directly to the development of integrated circuits, which in turn made possible every modern electronic device, from calculators and portable radios to computers and spacecraft. It is the fundamental building block of the information age, and virtually every piece of digital technology in use today is a direct descendant of the work done in that New Jersey laboratory in the winter of 1947. The mathematical theory of everything, digital, information theory. If the transistor was the physical heart of the digital revolution, information theory was its intellectual soul. In a landmark 1948 paper titled A Mathematical Theory of Communication, Bell Labs mathematician Claude Shannon laid down the fundamental principles that govern the storage and transmission of all information. Some have argued that this theoretical work was even more profound and fundamental than the invention of the transistor. Shannon's genius was to separate the concept of information from its physical meaning or medium. He proposed that all information, whether a voice on a telephone, words on a page, or an image, could be quantified and represented as a series of binary digits, or bits. This was a revolutionary abstraction. It meant that any message could be encoded into a universal digital format, enabling the modern world of computing, digital media, and the Internet. The paper introduced two other crucial concepts. The first was entropy, a measure of the uncertainty or randomness in a message source, which established a theoretical limit for data compression. The second, and perhaps most famous, was the concept of channel capacity, now known as the Shannon limit. Shannon proved mathematically that for any given communication channel, like a copper wire or a radio frequency, there exists a maximum rate at which information can be transmitted with arbitrarily low error, regardless of the noise in the channel. This discovery had an immense impact. It provided engineers with the definitive, theoretical benchmark, a finish line to strive for in designing communication systems. The entire history of modern telecommunications, from the development of modems and error-correcting codes to the design of fiber optic and wireless networks, can be viewed as a relentless effort to approach the Shannon limit. Shannon's work transformed communication from an engineering art into a rigorous science, providing the mathematical foundation for cryptography, data storage, and every digital network that connects the globe today. The software stack of the future, Unix and C. While the transistor and information theory provided the hardware and theoretical underpinnings of the digital age, Bell Labs also created its dominant software environment. In 1969, a team of researchers including Ken Thompson and Dennis Ritchie, frustrated with the cumbersome operating systems of the day, began work on a new system they called Unix. Their goal was to create a simple, elegant, and convenient platform for programmers. The elegance of Unix stemmed from a few powerful design philosophies. First, it popularized a hierarchical file system, where everything, including hardware devices, was treated as a file. Second, it was built around the idea of using small, simple programs, or tools, that did one thing well and could be chained together through pipes to perform complex tasks. This modular approach was incredibly powerful and flexible. The true breakthrough, however, came in 1973 when Dennis Ritchie rewrote the Unix kernel in a new programming language he had developed called C. C was a high-level language that was nonetheless powerful and efficient enough to manipulate low-level hardware, a perfect middle ground between cumbersome assembly language and less performant languages. Writing the operating system in C made Unix the first truly portable OS. It could be relatively easily adapted to run on different computer hardware, a revolutionary concept at the time. The combination of Unix and C proved to be world-changing. AT&T licensed Unix to universities for a nominal fee, where it quickly became the standard for academic and research computing. Its influence is almost impossible to overstate. It became the de facto standard for the budding computer industry, and the Internet was built on Unix systems. Its design principles and the C language formed the foundation for countless subsequent technologies. Modern operating systems like Linux, Mac OS, iOS, and Android are all direct descendants of Unix. And the C language became the progenitor of many of the most important programming languages that followed, including C++, C#, Java, and Python. Together, Unix and C became the software stack of the future, born from a side project at Bell Labs. Light, stars, and signals, a universe of discovery. The sheer breadth of Bell Labs' output is a testament to the power of its unique research environment. Beyond the foundational pillars of solid-state electronics and computing, its scientists made groundbreaking discoveries across a vast range of fields, often as the unexpected byproducts of solving practical communication problems. The laser, 1958, Arthur Schawlow and Charles Townes, the latter a consultant to Bell Labs, co-authored the seminal paper describing the principles of the laser, light amplification by stimulated emission of radiation. This invention, which grew out of earlier work on Maser's microwave amplification, provided a source of pure, coherent light that has since found applications in everything from fiber optic communications and data storage, CDs, DVDs, to surgery and manufacturing. The photovoltaic cell, 1954. Researchers Daryl Chapin, Calvin Fuller, and Jared Pearson developed the first practical silicon solar cell. While working on semiconductors for electronics, they created a p-n junction that was remarkably efficient at converting sunlight directly into electricity, laying the groundwork for all subsequent solar power technology. The charge-coupled device, CCD, 1969. Willard Boyle and George E. Smith invented the CCD, a light-sensitive integrated circuit, in about an hour of brainstorming. Initially conceived as a new type of computer memory, its ability to convert light into an electrical signal made it the key component in digital imaging. The CCD and its successor, the CMOS sensor, are at the heart of every digital camera, video camera, and astronomical telescope, including the Hubble. Satellite communications, 1962. Bell Labs designed and, in partnership with NASA, launched Telstar-1, the world's first active communications satellite. Telstar-1 relayed the first live transatlantic television broadcast, dramatically demonstrating the potential of satellite technology to connect the globe in real time and forever changing global communications. Radio astronomy, 1931. In one of the most famous examples of scientific serendipity, engineer Karl Jansky was tasked with identifying sources of static that were interfering with transatlantic radio telephone service. While meticulously tracking down all terrestrial sources of noise, he discovered a faint, persistent hiss coming from the center of the Milky Way galaxy. He had discovered cosmic radio waves, and in doing so, founded the entire field of radio astronomy. The discovery of the Big Bang's echo, 1964. In a similar vein, Arnold Penzias and Robert Wilson were using a large horn reflector antenna in Holmdel, New Jersey, to study radio signals. They were frustrated by a persistent, low-level background noise that they could not eliminate, even after removing nesting pigeons from the antenna. They eventually realized they had stumbled upon the cosmic microwave background radiation, the residual heat from the Big Bang. This discovery provided the strongest evidence for the Big Bang theory and earned them the 1978 Nobel Prize in Physics. These discoveries underscore a crucial aspect of the Bell Labs model. Fundamental breakthroughs often arise from the pursuit of practical goals. The freedom to explore anomalies encountered during applied research, combined with an interdisciplinary environment where an engineer's noise problem could become a physicist's cosmic discovery, was a powerful engine for creating entirely new fields of science. Part 3. The Engine of Exponential Advance. The inventions of Bell Labs did more than just solve problems. They fundamentally altered the trajectory of technological progress. Through innovations in particular, the transistor and information theory did not just add to the world's technological capabilities, they introduced the new dynamics of exponential growth. They established the physical and theoretical frameworks for the relentless, predictable, and accelerating advancements that has characterized the last 75 years. This section analyzes how these core breakthroughs became the engines of an exponential revolution, igniting the exponential, the transistor and Moore's law. The invention of the transistor at Bell Labs in 1947 was the spark that ignited the modern digital revolution. However, the fuel for the subsequent exponential explosion came from an observation made nearly 2 decades later by Gordon Moore. In 1965, Moore, then at Fairchild Semiconductor, noted that the number of components, primarily transistors, on an integrated circuit, IC, had been doubling approximately every year and projected this trend would continue. He later revised this forecast to a doubling every 2 years, a prediction that became famously known as Moore's Law. Moore's Law is not a law of physics, but an empirical observation of a historical trend and a projection of economic and technological scaling. It became a self-fulfilling prophecy for the semiconductor industry, a shared roadmap and a target for research and development that set the pace of innovation for over half a century. This predictable, exponential increase in computing power and decrease in cost per transistor is responsible for the proliferation of digital electronics into every corner of modern life. While Gordon Moore articulated the law, it was the transistor from Bell Labs that made the law possible. The transistor was the first electronic component that was inherently amenable to the radical miniaturization and mass production photolithography techniques that drive the exponential scaling Moore described. Bell Labs, therefore, did not just invent a new device. It invented the fundamental unit of exponential technological growth. A profound irony, however, lies at the heart of this story. The very structure that enabled the transistor's invention, the AT&T monopoly, was also what prevented Bell Labs from fully participating in the revolution it started. The 1956 Antitrust Consent Decree was a pivotal event. It forced AT&T to license its vast patent portfolio, including all patents related to the transistor, to any American firm for a low, reasonable royalty, often for free. Furthermore, the decree barred AT&T from entering any business other than regulated telecommunications, effectively preventing it from competing in the nascent computer and semiconductor markets. This forced open sourcing of the transistor was the catalyst for the birth of a new, fiercely competitive semiconductor industry outside the walls of Bell Labs. Companies like Texas Instruments and new startups in what would become Silicon Valley, such as Fairchild Semiconductor, where Moore worked, and later Intel, took the transistor and ran with it. The competitive pressures of the open market, not the sheltered environment of the monopoly lab, provided the intense incentive to shrink transistors, pack them more densely onto silicon wafers, and drive down costs at the exponential rate Moore predicted. This reveals a complex, two-stage model for technological revolutions. The first stage, incubation, may require an environment like Bell Labs, protected, resource-rich, and focused on long-term, fundamental discovery, to produce a truly foundational breakthrough. The second stage, acceleration, may require the opposite, a competitive, market-driven ecosystem, to unleash the invention's full exponential potential. Bell Labs built the engine of the digital age, but it was the entrepreneurs of Silicon Valley, empowered by antitrust action, who put their foot on the accelerator. The Shannon limit, a finish line that always moves. Just as the transistor provided the physical basis for exponential growth in computing, Claude Shannon's information theory provided the theoretical framework for exponential growth in communications. His 1948 paper established that every communication channel, a pair of copper wires, a coaxial cable, a band of radio spectrum, has a fundamental, maximum speed limit at which data can be transmitted without error. This limit, now known as the Shannon limit, or channel capacity, is determined by the channel's bandwidth and its signal-to-noise ratio. The establishment of this hard, mathematical limit had a transformative effect on the field of communications engineering. It created a clear, unambiguous target for innovation. The Shannon limit represented the perfect communication system, a theoretical 100% efficiency that engineers could strive to achieve. For decades, the entire field of telecommunications has been engaged in a relentless race to design and build systems that can operate closer and closer to this theoretical maximum. This pursuit has driven countless innovations. The development of sophisticated modulation techniques, powerful error-correcting codes, and advanced digital signal processing algorithms can all be seen as attempts to squeeze more bits per second through a given channel, inching ever closer to the Shannon limit. This race has played out across every communication medium. Asterisk in the 1990s, the battle between 56K modem manufacturers was a competition to see whose technology could get closest to the Shannon capacity of a standard telephone line. Asterisk the development of DSL and cable modem technologies was about applying more advanced techniques to push data rates on copper and coaxial lines far beyond what was previously thought possible. Asterisk in wireless communications, the evolution from 1G to 5G, and now the resurgence to 6G, is a continuous effort to use spectrum more efficiently and approach the Shannon limit for radio channels, driven by innovations like MIMO, multiple input, multiple output, a technology pioneered at Bell Labs in the 2000s. Asterisk in optical networking, researchers are constantly developing new methods like probabilistic constellation shaping, PCS, to push the capacity of a single optical fiber towards its ultimate Shannon limit. The probability that a single research institution would produce both the foundational device of the digital age, the transistor, and its foundational mathematical theory, information theory, within a 12-month period is vanishingly small. That this occurred at Bell Labs is not a mere coincidence. It is a powerful testament to the unique critical mass of talent and the holistic, problem-rich environment that defined the laboratory. The grand mission of building a global telephone network was a problem that could not be solved by better physics or better mathematics alone. It required both. Bell Labs was one of the only places on Earth that had assembled world-class experts in solid-state physics, materials science, and abstract mathematics and had them all working, consciously or not, on the same overarching challenge. The result was a perfect intellectual storm that produced the twin pillars of the modern world. Part IV, the Idea Factory's shadow, controversies and constraints. For all its celebrated successes, the story of Bell Labs is not without its shadows. The very monopoly structure that enabled its golden age also imposed significant constraints and created inherent contradictions. The lab's history is marked by instances of suppressed innovation, deep and sometimes controversial entanglements with the U.S. military, and ultimately, a decline and fragmentation brought about by the same government that had long protected its parent company. A critical examination of these less lauded aspects is essential for a complete understanding of the Bell Labs phenomenon. The golden handcuffs, suppressed innovation and conspiracy theories. The immense power and market security of the AT&T monopoly created what can be described as golden handcuffs. While the lab was free to explore a vast scientific territory, its parent company, AT&T, was primarily interested in innovations that protected and enhanced its core business, the telephone network. Technologies that fell outside this mandate, or worse, threatened to disrupt it, were often sidelined or actively suppressed, regardless of their technical merit or commercial potential. The most well-documented case of this is the invention of magnetic recording. During the 1930s, scientists and engineers at Bell Labs developed several prototype magnetic recorders, including a fully functional telephone answering machine in 1935 and a high-fidelity recorder that was arguably the world's best at the time. Despite these technical successes and the clear potential for consumer and broadcast applications, AT&T's upper management refused to develop the technology for public use and actively discouraged its development by others. The suppression was not based on technical or economic feasibility, but on a corporate policy decision. The company feared that a widely available device for recording telephone conversations could erode public trust in the privacy of the telephone, create legal liabilities, and ultimately harm its core business. As a result, Bell Labs fell behind German and other American companies in the field, and its pioneering work is now largely forgotten. While some narratives drift into the realm of conspiracy theory, these instances of suppression are better understood as the rational, if short-sighted, behavior of a dominant monopoly. Another, more subtle example can be seen in the problem of tin whiskers. In the late 1940s, Bell Labs discovered that thin filaments of tin could spontaneously grow from tin-plated electronic components, causing short circuits. They solved the problem by adding a small amount of lead to the tin solder. This practical solution worked for decades within the closed ecosystem of the Bell system. However, with the rise of global environmental regulations restricting the use of lead rows, the electronics industry has been forced to move back to lead-free solders, and the tin whisker problem has re-emerged as a significant reliability concern for modern electronics. This illustrates how a solution developed for a closed, monopolistic system may not be optimal or sustainable in a broader, more complex global context. Similarly, the development of echo-cancellation theory at Bell Labs in the 1960s was a critical innovation for improving the quality of long-distance and satellite calls within their network. However, the primary motivation was to solve a specific problem inherent to the Bell system, not necessarily to create a technology for the broader audio market. The monopoly, therefore, acted as both a powerful catalyst for research relevant to its needs and a powerful filter that screened out innovations, however brilliant, that were deemed irrelevant or threatening. The military-industrial scientific complex. Bell Labs was not just a corporate research entity. It was a cornerstone of America's military-industrial complex, a relationship that was particularly deep during World War II and the Cold War. The laboratory's vast technical resources and pool of scientific talent were indispensable to the U.S. government, and in turn, military contracts provided a significant source of funding in a stream of urgent, complex problems that pushed the boundaries of technology. During World War II, Bell Labs essentially became a war laboratory. Its staff of over 6,000 was exempt from military service due to the critical nature of their work. They made crucial contributions across numerous domains, inventing or improving radar systems, sonar for detecting submarines, echo-ranging sonar, proximity fuses, and the bazooka. One of their most significant wartime achievements was the development of Sijali, the first encrypted voice communication system, which allowed President Franklin Roosevelt and Prime Minister Winston Churchill to hold secure telephone conversations across the Atlantic. This deep integration continued into the Cold War. Bell Labs was the prime contractor for the Nike anti-aircraft missile project, a cornerstone of U.S. air defense for decades. The lab's leaders were also influential figures in national policy. Frank Jouett, the lab's first president, led the National Academy of Sciences during World War II, and his successor, Oliver E. Buckley, was a key science advisor to the Roosevelt and Truman administrations, participating in critical policy debates concerning thermonuclear warfare. This symbiotic relationship reveals a more complex motivation behind AT&T's support for pure science. The prestige that Bell Labs garnered from its fundamental research and Nobel Prizes served a crucial political purpose. When the Department of Justice filed an antitrust lawsuit in 1949 seeking to break up the Bell system, the company's most powerful defense was its status as a vital national security asset. The Department of Defense lobbied intensely on AT&T's behalf, arguing that dismembering the company and its integrated research lab would be detrimental to the nation's defense capabilities. The resulting 1956 consent decree, which left the monopoly largely intact, was a direct result of this political pressure. This suggests that the investment in high-prestige, non-commercial basic research was not merely an act of corporate altruism or a simple pursuit of knowledge. It was a core component of a sophisticated political strategy. The halo effect from the lab's scientific achievements provided public and political legitimacy, which, combined with its tangible contributions to national defense, created a powerful shield that helped protect AT&T's core monopoly interests for decades. The pursuit of pure science was, in this sense, an eminently practical business and political decision. The end of the empire, antitrust and fragmentation. The forces that would ultimately dismantle the Bell system and its unique innovation engine were set in motion long before the final breakup. The 1956 consent decree, while a political victory for AT&T in that it staved off divestiture, contained the seeds of the system's unraveling. The decree's most significant provision was the requirement that Bell license its entire portfolio of existing patents to any American company, royalty-free. This act of forced technology transfer had a colossal impact. It effectively open-sourced the transistor and other key semiconductor technologies, providing the intellectual property foundation for the burgeoning electronics industry in Texas and California. While the decree failed to end AT&T's foreclosure of the telecommunications equipment market, it permanently increased the scale of use innovation by empowering a new generation of competitors. By the 1970s, the political and economic climate had shifted. The pressure for deregulation and increased competition was mounting. A new, more aggressive antitrust lawsuit was filed by the Department of Justice in 1974. This time, the national security arguments were not enough to save the monopoly. On January 1, 1984, the Bell system was broken apart under the terms of the modification of final judgment. The consequences for Bell Labs were immediate and profound. Its funding, once guaranteed by the monopoly's revenue stream, was drastically reduced. The unified organization was fractured. A significant portion of its staff was spun off to form Bell Communications Research, Bellcore, a new R&D organization to serve the newly independent regional Bell operating companies. The remaining entity, renamed AT&T Bell Laboratories, stayed with the new, smaller AT&T. The fragmentation continued. In 1996, AT&T spun off its equipment manufacturing business and most of Bell Labs into a new company, Lucent Technologies. AT&T retains a small research group, which became AT&T Labs. This event marked the definitive end of the integrated, mission-driven model that had defined the institution. Lucent, facing intense market competition, could not afford the long-term, blue-sky research of the old Bell Labs. The subsequent year saw a series of mergers and acquisitions. Lucent merged with the French company Alcatel in 2006 to form Alcatel-Lucent, and in 2016, the combined entity was acquired by Nokia of Finland. Today, Nokia Bell Labs continues to conduct world-class research, particularly in areas like 6G and optical networking, and has even been selected by NASA to build a cellular network on the moon. However, the original Idea Factory, the vast, multidisciplinary, monopoly-funded institution that changed the world, ceased to exist in 1984. Its DNA was scattered among various successor organizations, and its unique model of innovation became a relic of a bygone era. Part V, a comparative anatomy of innovation. To fully appreciate the singularity of the Bell Labs model, it is essential to place it in context with other great research and development institutions of the 20th and 21st centuries. Each of these organizations, Xerox PARC, DARPA, Lockheed Skunk Works, and the MIT Media Lab, represents a different approach to fostering innovation, with distinct funding sources, organizational structures, and cultural philosophies. By comparing their methods, successes, and failures, we can distill a richer understanding of the specific conditions that made Bell Labs so uniquely productive. The following table provides a structured, at-a-glance comparison of these 5 influential models, breaking down their core characteristics to highlight the fundamental similarities and differences in their approaches to invention and discovery. This framework serves as an analytical anchor for the detailed narrative that follows, systematically revealing the unique DNA of each organization. Pipe Feature Pipe Bell Labs Pipe Xerox PARC Pipe DARPA Pipe Lockheed Skunk Works Pipe MIT Media Lab Pipe Pipe dash 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 pipe pipe funding source, pipe AT&T monopoly revenue, private tax, pipe Xerox monopoly revenue, copiers, pipe use government, DOT budget, pipe corporate, Lockheed, via military contracts, pipe corporate sponsorships, government grants, pipe organizational structure, pipe large, integrated R&D division, research, systems and development, co-located talent, pipe small, isolated R&D lab, physically and culturally distant from HQ, pipe lean funding agency with rotating program managers, funds external performers, pipe small, highly autonomous, secretive team within a larger corporation, pipe multidisciplinary academic lab with faculty, grad students, and corporate liaisons, pipe core mission, pipe enable universal service for the Bell system, solve network challenges, pipe invent the office of the future, explore new information technologies, pipe prevent technological surprise, create breakthrough technologies for national security, pipe rapidly design and build advanced, secret military aircraft on tight deadlines, pipe creative use of digital technology to enhance human expression and communication, pipe research philosophy, pipe long-term, basic research feeding applied needs, freedom and stability for researchers, pipe vision-driven, pure research, fund people, not projects, demo or die, pipe high risk, high payoff, challenge-driven projects, Howmeyer Catechism, portfolio approach, pipe Kelly's 14 rules, extreme autonomy, speed, minimal bureaucracy, rapid prototyping, pipe demo or die, blending art, science, and design, focus on prototypes and spin-offs, pipe key successes, pipe transistor, information theory, laser, Unix C, solar cell, satellites, radio astronomy, pipe graphical user interface, Ethernet, laser printer, object-oriented programming, auto PC, pipe ARPANET/intranet, GPS, stealth technology, vaccine investment, drones, pipe P-80, U-2, Senior 71 Blackbird, F-117 Nighthawk, F-22 Raptor, pipe wearable computing, E-Ink, Lego Mindstorms, effective computing, numerous spin-offs, pipe primary failure controversy, pipe suppression of non-core technologies, for example, magnetic recording, eventual breakup by antitrust action, pipe corporate failure to commercialize most of its revolutionary inventions, pipe high-profile project failures, for example, strategic computing initiative, bureaucracy creep, pipe extreme secrecy limiting oversight, potential for cost overruns on classified projects, pipe major funding scandals, for example, Jeffrey Epstein donations, questions of ethical governance, pipe the parable of Park, inventing versus commercializing. Xerox's Palo Alto Research Center, Park, founded in 1970, is perhaps the closest historical analogs to Bell Labs. Like Bell Labs, it was funded by the immense profits of a parent company with a near monopoly, in this case on the photocopier market. Also like Bell Labs, Park produced a breathtaking array of foundational technologies that would define an entire industry. In a stunningly productive period in the 1970s, Park researchers invented the core elements of the personal computing revolution, the graphical user interface with windows and icons, the mouse, the Ethernet local area network, object-oriented programming, the laser printer, and the Xerox Alto, the first true personal computer. Yet, the story of Park is famously a tragedy of missed opportunity. While Bell Labs saw its inventions successfully integrated into the world's most advanced communications network, Xerox largely failed to commercialize Park's revolutionary creations. The company's management, steeped in the culture of the copier business, could not grasp the potential of personal computing and saw it as a distraction from their core market. This failure allowed outsiders like Apple's Steve Jobs and Microsoft's Bill Gates, who visited Park and understood the significance of what they saw, to adopt and commercialize these ideas, building vast empires in the process. The comparison between Bell Labs and Park reveals that world-class research alone is not enough. The key difference lay in the relationship between the research lab and its corporate parent. AT&T's mission of universal service was a technological challenge that was perfectly aligned with Bell Labs' research into physics, materials, and mathematics. The inventions of the lab directly served the mission of the parent company. In stark contrast, PARC's mission to invent the office of the future was fundamentally disconnected from Xerox's identity as the document company. This disconnect was exacerbated by physical and cultural isolation. PARC was located 3,000 miles from Xerox headquarters in New York, a deliberate choice to foster freedom that ultimately proved fatal to technology transfer. The success of Bell Labs was inextricably tied to the mission of its parent. The tragedy of PARC was its profound disconnect from it. Mission-driven machines, DARPA and Skunk Works. Two other legendary innovation models, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, DARPA, and Lockheed's Skunk Works, offer a different point of comparison. Both are intensely mission-driven, but their approach differs significantly from the Bell Labs model of blending basic and applied research. DARPA was created by the U.S. government in 1958 with a single, clear mission: to prevent future technological surprises like the Soviet launch of Sputnik. It operates as a small, agile funding agency, with program managers who are empowered to identify and fund high-risk, high-payoff projects across a network of external performers in academia and industry. DARPA does not conduct research itself. It catalyzes and manages it. Its philosophy is explicitly focused on achieving ambitious, change-state technological capabilities for national security, not on incremental improvements or pure discovery. This has led to an incredible track record of success, with DARPA playing a critical role in the development of the ARPANET, the precursor to the Internet, GPS, stealth technology, and even providing early funding for vaccine technology. Lockheed's Skunk Works, founded in 1943, represents the corporate model of mission-driven innovation. It is a highly autonomous, secretive, and agile division within the larger Lockheed Martin Corporation, tasked with the rapid development of advanced military aircraft. Its operating philosophy is codified in founder Kelly Johnson's 14 Rules, which emphasize radical autonomy for the project manager, small, elite teams, minimal bureaucracy, and a close, trusting relationship with the customer. This model has allowed Skunk Works to produce some of the most iconic aircraft in history, including the U-2 spy plane, the Senior 71 Blackbird, and the F-117 Nighthawk stealth fighter, often on incredibly tight schedules and budgets. Compared to Bell Labs, both DARPA and Skunk Works are far more project-based and application-focused. They start with a defined, albeit extremely challenging, goal and work backward. Bell Labs, in its golden age, often worked forward from fundamental science, allowing applications to emerge from the reservoir of new knowledge. The philosophies of DARPA and Skunk Works share some traits with Bell Labs: research freedom, autonomy, tolerance for risk, and trust in technical experts, but they apply these principles to goal-oriented development and engineering, not open-ended scientific discovery. The modern heirs, MIT Media Lab and THROS. In the post-Bell Labs era, new models of innovation have emerged that attempt to capture elements of its creative spirit, albeit with different structures and funding mechanisms. The MIT Media Lab, founded in 1985, is one prominent example. It champions an interdisciplinary approach, deliberately blending art, science, design, and engineering to explore the creative use of digital technologies. Its culture is famously characterized by the motto "Demo or Die," which emphasizes the creation of working prototypes and encourages an entrepreneurial path for its researchers and students, leading to numerous successful spin-off companies like Inc. and Harmonix. The Media Lab's funding model, which relies on a consortium of corporate sponsors who fund general research themes rather than specific projects, bears a superficial resemblance to the Bell Labs model of broad, stable support. However, this model is far more precarious and has led to significant controversy, most notably the scandal involving donations from Jeffrey Epstein, which exposed deep ethical issues in its governance and led to the resignation of its director. While the Media Lab shares Bell Labs' interdisciplinary ethos, its focus is more diffuse, creative, and entrepreneurial, and its output, while impressive, has arguably been less foundational than the core inventions of Bell Labs' golden age. A more recent development is the concept of focused research organizations, FROs, a new institutional model that has emerged, in part, from discussions among MIT researchers. FROs are nonprofit entities, often philanthropically funded, designed to tackle large-scale, systems-level science and engineering projects. They aim to fill a gap for projects that are too large or engineering-heavy for a single academic lab, but are not yet commercially viable enough for industry to pursue. FROs represent a modern attempt to recreate the big science capability of institutions like Bell Labs, but their reliance on philanthropic funding rather than a stable, self-sustaining monopoly raises questions about their long-term scalability and viability. They are a promising experiment in the ongoing quest to find new ways to support the kind of ambitious, foundational research that was once the hallmark of Bell Labs. Conclusion: the unrepeatable moment. The history of Bell Laboratories is the story of a singular institution that arose from a unique confluence of forces, a perfect storm in the history of technology that is unlikely to ever be repeated. Its golden age, from the 1940s to the 1970s, was the product of a specific and potent formula, a government-sanctioned, national-scale monopoly, AT&T, that provided immense and stable funding. A clear, ambitious, and technically demanding mission, universal telephone service that justified deep investment in basic science. A professional landscape where a job at an industrial lab could attract the world's top scientific minds. And visionary leadership that understood how to architect an environment for discovery. The central paradox of Bell Labs is that the very conditions that made it possible are antithetical to the modern economic and technological landscape. The monopolistic structure that incubated foundational inventions like the transistor is incompatible with today's global consensus favoring competition and open markets. Conversely, the fiercely competitive, venture-funded ecosystem that drives today's rapid, iterative innovation may be structurally incapable of supporting the kind of patient, long-term, and often unpredictable research that led to Bell Labs' greatest breakthroughs. We have traded the potential for deep, paradigm-shifting discovery for the certainty of fast, market-driven improvement. The analysis of Bell Labs' history reveals a complex, multi-stage model for technological revolutions. A protected, resource-rich incubation phase, like that provided by the AT&T monopoly, appears to be necessary for the kind of fundamental scientific discovery that creates new platforms. However, a competitive, market-driven acceleration phase, like the one unleashed by the 1956 antitrust decree, seems necessary to realize the full exponential potential of those platforms. Bell Labs could invent the transistor, but it took a competitive Silicon Valley to give us Moore's Law. Though we cannot recreate Bell Labs, its story offers enduring and vital lessons for any organization, industry, or nation seeking to foster true innovation. First is the immense strategic value of long-term vision and the patient capital required to pursue it. Second is the recognition that the most profound breakthroughs often emerge at the intersection of disciplines, and that physical and organizational structures must be deliberately designed to foster these serendipitous collisions. Finally, the legacy of Bell Labs is a powerful reminder that while individual genius is to be celebrated, sustained innovation is the product of a system, a culture, an architecture, and a mission that can transform a critical mass of talented individuals into a collective force capable of inventing the future. The challenge for the 21st century is not to rebuild the idea factory in Murray Hill, but to find new models that can nurture its spirit of fearless, foundational, and world-changing inquiry.